The year is 1969 and humanity is on the verge of something extraordinary. A trio of astronauts are about to embark on a journey that will take them farther than any human has ever gone before. Welcome to my channel, and today let's see how humans first set foot on the moon. Part 1. The background. The space race was a period of friendly competition between the United States and the Soviet Union, from the mid-1950s to the early 1970s. Both superpowers were eager to demonstrate their technological superiority and gain the upper hand. The race began when the USSR launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth in 1957. The US responded by creating NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, in 1958. 4 years later, the USSR achieved another milestone as their cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. The U.S. President, John F. Kennedy, responded to these achievements with a famous speech in which he boldly proclaimed that America would land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth before the decade was out. To achieve this ambitious goal, NASA launched the Apollo program, a series of space missions aimed at testing spacecraft, rockets, and procedures needed to land astronauts on the moon and bring them back home safely. Part 2. The mission begins. After years of planning and rigorous testing, it was finally time to launch the first manned Apollo mission to the moon. Apollo 11 lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on July 1969 at 13:32 UTC, marking a giant leap for mankind. The massive Saturn V rocket propelled the spacecraft into space, carrying 3 astronauts: Neil Armstrong as commander, Buzz Aldrin as lunar module pilot, and Michael Collins as command module pilot. Their spacecraft consisted of 3 parts. The first was the command module, nicknamed Columbia, which would stay in lunar orbit. The second was the service module, which provided propulsion and other support systems. And the third was the lunar module, nicknamed Eagle, which would carry Armstrong and Aldrin to the moon's surface. Part 3. Journey to the Moon. After a successful launch, Apollo 11 entered Earth orbit and performed a series of maneuvers to raise its altitude. On July, the spacecraft performed a translunar injection burn, firing its engines to break free of Earth's gravitational pull and head towards the moon. The journey lasted about 3 days, during which the crew performed tests and checked equipment. On July, Apollo 11 entered lunar orbit, marking the beginning of their historic mission. Part 4. The landing. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin prepared to descend to the lunar surface. They entered the lunar module, nicknamed Eagle, while Collins remained in the command module. As they approached the moon, Armstrong noticed that the programmed landing site was littered with rocks and craters, making it an unsafe landing spot. Using his intuition and piloting skills, he took manual control and successfully guided Eagle to a smooth patch of terrain. At 2017 UTC, Armstrong radioed, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." Mission Control erupted in relief and celebration. They had been tracking the Eagle closely and knew they only had about 30 seconds of fuel left. Part 5. First steps on the moon. After confirming that Eagle was in a stable orbit around the moon, Armstrong and Aldrin began preparing for their historic first steps on the lunar surface. About 6 hours later, Armstrong climbed down the ladder, and at 02:56 UTC on July 21st, he became the first human to set foot on the moon. His famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Buzz Aldrin followed shortly after. Together, they spent 2 hours and 15 minutes walking on the surface, collecting rock and soil samples, setting up scientific instruments, and planting the U.S. flag. Meanwhile, Michael Collins orbited alone in the command module, calling himself the loneliest man in the universe. Part 6. Return to Earth. After spending 21 hours on the lunar surface, Armstrong and Aldrin lifted off in the lunar module's ascent stage, rejoining Collins in lunar orbit. They undocked from the command module and began their journey back to Earth. On July 24, 1969, Apollo 11 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean and was recovered by the aircraft carrier USS Hornet. The astronauts were immediately placed in quarantine for 21 days as a precautionary measure against any potential moon germs. Part 7. The impact. The Apollo 11 mission was a resounding success. fulfilling President Kennedy's goal of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. It showcased the technological prowess of the United States during the height of the Cold War and inspired people around the world. Between 1969 and 1972, 5 more Apollo missions landed astronauts on the moon. But none could match the wonder and excitement of the first. Apollo 11 had accomplished what was once considered impossible, capturing the world's imagination and inspiring generations to reach for the stars. And that's a wrap on the story of Apollo 11. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching.